So, preparing for registration, just to point out that for all the other, social work part of the register is the only part of the register that it's mandatory to be, if you're working as a social worker, you must be registered with the SSSC. All the other parts of the register are open and they're inviting applications for all the other parts. However, at the moment it isn't mandatory. We expect that the executive will tell us in time, and it will be a planned approach, that registration will become mandatory for all the other groups. The reason it's not mandatory yet is that we're aware that in various different parts of the sector, there are people and organisations where their staff are unqualified, and it would be impossible for them to get their staff all qualified now or within the next couple of years. So we're saying that it's to be a phased approach, and employers should look at it in that way. And what will happen is that this won't continue on and on and on. It should just be that employers should sit down, look at the workforce, see who's qualified, and say, right, this is the plan for who I'm going to get registered or who's going to get qualifications over the next few years. Registration can be granted subject to someone gaining a qualification within a particular period of time, and that's usually the first 3 years of the registration period. So people who are planning to do a qualification, you know, maybe they've started it or they're about to get about to start it, they can apply for registration now, and they would be registered subject to a condition that they gain a qualification within the first 3 years. This planned and phased approach to registration, part of the Care Commission's inspection now includes a question about who's registered with particular regulatory bodies, and if they're not registered, what's the plan in place to get people registered. So that's something to note, that when services are being inspected by the Care Commission, they will be asking that question. The condition on registration, that requirement, people will always be able to register subject to conditions. So in 10, 20 years' time, it's not going to be a case of people have to have the qualification when they're coming into the workforce. We have to give people the opportunities to be able to come in without the qualifications and to gain it within a certain period of time. So that will always be there. Another very important point is that if someone is registered with another regulatory body, I've put the example of the General Teaching Council up there, but there will be, you know, the Nursing and Midwifery Council, any of the other regulatory bodies that are listed in our application packs, they can't be registered with us at the same time as being registered with another regulatory body. If someone has been registered with another regulatory body, but they're no longer registered with that body, they would register with us, but and so that's okay, you know, if their registration's expired with their own regulatory body. If they remain registered with their regulatory body, like the Nursing and Midwifery Council, they still have to meet our qualification requirements. So an example would be in, say, a residential childcare setting, where it's a manager of a residential childcare setting. They would have, the practice qualification would be their nursing qualification, but they would also need to get a management qualification. And it's the Care Commission that will come in, because they won't have a relationship with us, they're registered with the Nursing and Midwifery Council. The Care Commission will come in and make sure that they have the appropriate qualifications to be doing their job.
Cheryl, before you move off that point, can I just interrupt there? What rigour was used by the SSSC in deciding that somebody registered with the NMC, a nurse of maybe 20 years experience, having carried out a function for the last 16 years, let's say in a care home environment, now needs to go and get a retrospective qualification to allow her to continue doing the work that she's currently doing. Because everything that's aimed here, I don't dispute the goodwill that's being put forward and the benefits that in the long run. The problem is, all right, we live within a social world which is run by economics. And also from the point of view that what we don't want to do is we don't want to lose these highly skilled people based on the fact that you're placing an emphasis on them that they don't wish to meet at a later stage in life. So what rigour was used by the SSSC to look at pre-learning, or like courses done by a nurse before they decided that she needed to now have a management qualification.
Adrian, forgive me for interrupting, but I think what we need to do is to save the questions, because Cheryl needs to be able to give her presentation, and there is an opportunity at the end of I think there is at the end of your session,
yes.
Cheryl. Could you please save that one, because I think while it's an important question, it's also important that we hear this.
Okay. So I'm just moving on now to the process on how people get registered. And for every part of the register, it's the same requirements in terms of proof of identity, evidence of competence, evidence of good character, and the payment of a fee. And I'm just going to talk through each of those in turn. The first one then, when people apply for registration, we need to be assured that they are who they say they are on their application form. And we're looking for at least two forms of identification. One is a birth certificate and the other must be photographic, so we're saying a driver's licence or a passport. And recent changes to Disclosure Scotland's processes they're now asking for a copy of a utility bill for proof of address. Although it says up there that it's two original documents, we don't want people to send their originals in with their applications. We're asking applicants to take these originals along to their employer. Their employer will take a photocopy and endorse the photocopy, and they submit the endorsed photocopy along with their application form. I'm often asked about the photographic proof of identity. You know, people maybe don't have a passport or photographic driver's licence. If that is the case with an individual, they need to phone our helpline and they would discuss what other forms of identity we may be able to accept. But that's the ones that we're looking for at the highest level, and then, you know, if people don't have that, we would talk them through what else we might be able to accept. Evidence of competence, and that's about what qualifications someone holds for that particular part of the register. Again, we need evidence that somebody has that qualification, so we're asking people to provide us with a photocopy which has been endorsed by the employer. There's also a section in the application form for people to tell us what qualification it is that they hold, so we would just look at that. And just to highlight the point again, that people can apply for registration without having the qualification, and they would be registered subject to a condition. Because I think some people look at the application form and see, you know, the question about qualifications and think, oh, you know, I don't have the qualification, maybe I can't apply for registration. So it's just to be clear about that they can apply and be registered without a qualification.